So yesterday I announced that I'm going to do an identity series around all things identity, 10-part series over the next month. I'm going to intermingle in. And one of the first things that came back was, can we do something on terminology? Right? We have lots of terms out in the identity market, and can we really get them set? And I think that's a great idea. So I'm still going to do the 10-part series, but today what we're going to do is we're going to level set on terminology. We're going to level set on 5 common things that we confuse, we get just generally kind of mixed up a little bit on how things are run in the identity market. Happy to do some more over time, but I'm going to start with these 5 to start with. The first one I'm going to start with is validation versus verification versus authentication. Now, identity validation is used when you're validating something if it's correctly formatted, if it's in the right position, like a passport number, something along those lines. So you're validating the elements are in the right places in the document. You're validating that the phone number meets the right format or a social security number meets the right format, things like that. You can do item checks around some numbers that are out there as well. So that's a validation tool. It just tells you that things are formatted correctly, they're in the right place, not connecting you with anything. It's not connecting you with that the Micah is who he says he is. Verification is where you're actually verifying the data is connected to an individual at a point in time. So that my social security number is tied to me, or my address is tied to me, or my documents are tied to me. So you're verifying that data that has come through. And the last is authentication. Again, and this is a separate one. Authentication happens after the verification. So you typically have the step validation, verification, authentication. Authentication is when you're coming back and you're proving that you were there before. So a biometric re-authentication. I've taken my selfie as part of the onboarding journey. I've enrolled, I've been verified. And now I'm using that same selfie to authenticate I'm the same person coming back again. It could be a password. We've talked about OTP. We talked about one-time passwords and things like that. So that's where it falls in. So that's validation versus verification versus authentication. Next thing we're going to talk about is digital ID. Now, this one drives me crazy. So in the past, the market has always said, we're digital identity providers. We're digital identity providers. The issue is that you're not. You're a digital identity journey provider. You're using technological ways to validate, verify, and authenticate that Micah is Micah. It's just a journey. So you're automating that, you're taking a paper process and you're making a digital journey. Versus digital IDs, which is the actual digital representation of a physical document, like your driver's license or something along those lines. It's cryptographically and encrypted, and it's held along those. So a digital ID is different than a digital ID journey. So when providers are out there and they say we're digital ID providers, make sure, again, you recognize which one are providing actual journeys versus which one are offering digital IDs. The next that we're going to talk about is identity proofing versus identity verification. Now, identity proofing is that process of establishing that an identity exists and belongs to a real person. It's the deeper, more thorough process, and usually happens once, usually at onboarding. So that's when that proofing is coming through. Now, identity verification confirms that the person presenting the credentials matches the identity on the record. It can happen at onboarding, or it can happen at a subsequent touch point. So proofing establishes the identity. Verification confirms it's the same person each time, which is different than authentication, which is you're the same person coming back every single time. So that's how you sort of separate proofing versus verification versus authentication. The next one we're going to talk about, one of my favorites, facial recognition versus facial matching. Now, this causes a lot of confusion and a lot of damage out in the market and how people think about biometrics. So it's really important that we're super duper clear on what this means. Facial recognition typically is one-to-many. It takes a face and it matches against a database to find a match. Now, this can be what a surveillance system does. But in a surveillance environment, you're matching that face print against usually a database of people who have not opted in. So maybe an FBI database of known people, of known criminals, things like that, or you're looking for that type of element. It also can mean a database that you have opted in. So Face ID on your iPhone. Or if you go to Disney World and you've enrolled and you've done it there, if you do a TSA pre-check or these other elements, that's when you're taking one to many. So it can mean surveillance. It can also mean one into a closed opted-in system. So this is a really important one to do. Surveillance obviously makes people uncomfortable because you've not opted into it. You don't know when it's occurring, whereas facial matching, you do. Or facial recognition on an opted-in consented database, you do. Facial matching is just one-to-one, right? So it takes your face, compares it against that reference image that you've given, usually done at onboarding, usually done at another point where you're taking your document, either your digital ID, which we spoke about, or a physical document where we've pulled the image off and we're comparing it against it. So there's no database, it's just doing one-to-one at a point in time. That is a facial match, how you're going about it. Now, most identity people do identity and facial matching. They don't do facial recognition, but this is starting to become more important over time and as people develop this as we go through. And so, these are just 5 things that really kind of get at me around it. So hopefully this has been helpful. Happy to do some more technology terminology things. It's been quite a long one. Hopefully people can go through. We'll do some chapters on this to make it easier to do. But hopefully we can understand the distinctions and you can point them at this if people need some clarity on what these definitions mean and have more precise conversations. So really looking forward to the series. Episode 1 drops tomorrow. So make sure you check in then. Talk to you soon.